I gave you something that says like this? What if I gave you f? What if I said the arc sine of negative square, or actually arc sine of 1/2? What does arc sine mean? It's the same thing if I give you arc tangent or arc cosine. What that means is that is the same thing as sine minus 1 of 1/2. So what am I looking for? I am looking for the angle where sine equals 1/2. Okay? So I need to find the angle where the sine equals 1/2. So if I look at my unit circle again, I know 1/2 is the y coordinate because I'm using sine. So I'm going to look around and I'm going to find where is sine equal to 1/2. Now sine, we use, it's right there. Sine is equal to 1/2 in quadrant 1 at pi over 6. Okay, so sine is pi over 6, has a or arc sine of 1/2 is pi over 6. So this is how we go about solving these types of problems. Okay, now what if I give you something that's more of an equation? So let's take a look at our next thing, and that's just doing basic unit circle trig. What if I gave you more advanced problems that look like this? So advanced problems. So for example, what if I gave you actually an equation? Cosine of 3 times theta minus 1 equals 0. What do you do when you try to solve something that is now an equation type thing? We were just trying to find values in the previous problems. Now we're trying to solve these things. So when you solve these things, the first step you need to do is you have to isolate the trig function. Okay? So if I isolate the trig function, I need to add 1 to the other side. So I have cosine of 3 times theta equals 1. Now, you need to ask yourself, okay, we want to get this. We're going to get this so we have 3 pi, or 3 theta, all by its lonesome. So in order to do that, we have to do 3 times theta, but we have to take the inverse cosine of 1, okay? To move that cosine part to the other side, we have to find the inverse cosine of it. So where on the unit circle would I have an angle that the cosine, the inverse cosine is 1, or where cosine is equal to 1? So we need to go to our unit circle. Remember, cosine is equal to the x coordinate of the point. So the only one that has a x coordinate is 0. So what we have here is we have 3 times theta. The only angle that is 0. Well, how do we figure out what theta is? Well, we divide by 3. So theta is actually equal to 0 degrees in this problem. So what you're doing is you're going to isolate your trig functions. Then you're going to have to find the angle measure that would give you, whatever angle would give you that value, whether it's cosine, sine, or tangent. Those are the usual 3 you're going to use. And then you have to then solve for what theta is going to be, okay, because you're isolating this portion of it. So let's do one more, just to kind of wrap our brains around these types of problems. So let's do one more, and that problem is going to look like this. So let's say I gave you 2 times the sine squared of theta minus 3 times the sine of theta equal plus 1 equals 0. Okay? Now, here is our problem. Okay? Sometimes you have to look at these in a very different sort of way. I want you to notice that this is actually a quadratic. okay? If you remember, quadratics are ax squared plus bx plus c. If I rewrote this, and I rewrote this like this, because what this means is this just means sine of theta squared minus 3 sine of theta plus 1 equals 0. What you have here is a quadratic. But what the quadratic is the sine part is actually just like your x's. So it's like saying you have 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. So let's go ahead and let's factor this. So if I have 2x squared, I know I'm going to have 2 sine of theta in the first one, and I know I'm going to have 1 sine of theta here, because I have to split up this first x squared part. And now I need to figure out what I'm going to do with that. Well, remember when you factor, we kind of do the guess and check method. The only ways, and I notice that this is a negative number, so I know there are going to be negative 1s there. Because if I do this times this, and this times this, I get negative 2 sine of theta and negative 1 sine of theta. And that, of course, adds up to negative 3 sine of theta. So this is a factoring problem. Once it's factored, you just set each part equal to 0. And then we have sine of theta equals minus 1 equals 0. So now go through and do the math for each part. Move 1 to the other side, so I have 2 sine of theta equals 1. I now need to divide it by 2, so I have sine of theta equals 1/2. And now you need to ask yourself, what angle does the sine equal 1/2? So we need to go back to our unit circle, and we remember the unit circle, sine is equal to 1/2. It's the y coordinate. So that one's going to be right here, okay, in quadrant 1. So we're going to do pi over 6. Now, you need to do the same thing for the next one. We have sine of theta minus 1. So we're going to move the 1 to the other side. And now we need to ask ourselves, where or what angle does the sine equal a value of 1? So with that one, remember, sine again is the y coordinate. So we need to find the y coordinate that equals 1. And that happens to be right at the top of the unit circle. So what angle measures that? That is pi over 2. So these are all of the ways that I need you to be able to use the unit circle to find solutions, okay? And remember, we're going to focus and keep more things in radians, and we're not going to use degrees very often. So on the AP Calc test, radians is going to be your angle of choice. So these are 2 things that you can do, or 2 ways that you can solve equations that have trig functions in them. I hope this helps. I hope this jogs some of your memory. And the next video is going to be on how to do some trig stuff with calculus. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.